Okay, hello again, everybody. We're back again today. Got another cool sci-fi film to review for you guys. So today we're talking about the movie Contact from 1997, starring Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey. So kind of similar to we did before we did Interstellar. So this is like in the same kind of vein, sort of science exploration movie. Um, yeah, I feel like this movie really those two films are very similar, and this film was kind of very much before its time. I feel like in watching it again now, like there's so many things that that the film like sort of tries to do um, that with the technology we have today could have been expanded on big time. But you know, they were trying to use like the sort of computer technology of the 90s, and it's kind of interesting to see it in perspective now.
I think it still holds up pretty well. It didn't look as bad as I was like worried it would. But you can tell, like, if it had been made like in 2020 or even like 2018, that like oh my god, the things that they could have done could have been like just seeing like the difference between the wormhole in Interstellar and then the wormhole in Contact.
Yeah,
very different. I mean, kind of similar because again, it's all like we don't know what it actually looks like on the inside, so it's all theory and everything like that. But yeah, they could have done more if it had been made later. But like, I like that. Oh, the dog's moving. I also like that nostalgia feel of it all too.
yeah.
Ooh.
There's some interesting stuff that they do, and we'll talk about that, like how they weave in the film characters with actual archival footage, and that creates a very interesting effect. And yeah, so you know, we'll talk about that when we get to there. But that stuff was done really well. Like they've done that well since Forrest Gump. So that was kind of cool that, you know, this film is grounded in an actual time period, you know, in the 90s.
And it made it a little bit more relatable, I guess, because if it had been made maybe like when Obama was like president or something like that, like, I mean, first of all, I think he totally would have just done the movie. I think Obama would have been fine with it. Again, it would have, you know, grounded us in that kind of reality. But most of us who are our age remember when Bill Clinton was president.
Yeah.
So, and I totally think he knows that the aliens are real. I totally, like, he's talked about it before, about the aliens. This is a guy who loves this shit.
Yeah, the Clintons do have an interesting relationship with that kind of stuff.
Extraterrestrials.
Well, yeah, I remember. So this was something that was very kind of not really talked about, but like when Hillary was running, she said she was going to release all the documents about that the U.S. government knows about UFOs. She didn't win, so maybe we'll never see it. That was kind of an interesting thing. Like she's like the most pro UFO presidential candidate.
Yeah, because they probably party with aliens, dude. I think they probably are aliens in some way. The Clintons were taken over a long time ago. Yeah, pro extraterrestrial life. Yeah. We love ET.
Yeah. I mean it was a couple of years ago, right, that they released this Navy footage of an actual UFO, and they're like, we don't know, we have no idea what it is, but
we just don't know anymore. Weird. I feel like they're totally fine, but just saying we don't know. Like, here you go. It's a few years old, but maybe it was over your house at one point. Like, I think they're here. Hi.
Here's the thing, right? So the universe is humongous. Like, it is beyond the scope of
everything.
Yeah, it is. So it totally makes sense that there would be some type of life out there. You know, the real question to me is just like, you know, have they been there here, and do they really care to talk about, to come to us? Like, you know, do they really care? Do they care our little trivial, you know, we're just like a bunch of monkeys kind of jumping around, attacking each other. So
yeah, I mean, Or maybe they've the contact that they've made has been just, I don't know, a total fuck up, and they're just like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't try. Their heads tend to explode when we say hi. I'm not sure why.
Maybe we should leave them alone. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, and then there's some really compelling alien abduction stories where you just like, even the most skeptic of person, like Brian does not believe in the existence of aliens. He does not. But I told him about, like, there are these alien abductions that happen simultaneously in New Hampshire on this one night, and it's completely unexplained. Completely. No one can explain it. These people never met, and they all got abducted at the same time, had memories of seeing each other, and met later on in life. Like, this one lady was like, yeah, I ended up meeting him, and as soon as I met him, I knew exactly who he was. Because I saw him when he was a kid in an alien ship. And it's like, Unsolved Mysteries did one, the new version of Unsolved Mysteries. It was one of the most compelling things I've ever seen. Like, makes me, it reaffirms, like, that I'm like, yeah, they're here. I'm fine with it. They're here.
I'm glad you brought up alien abductions, because it's definitely something for me to talk about. My feelings on that stuff in the 90s. So I think we've talked about this a few times off air. I don't know if we've talked about it on air, but I'll just talk about it now because it actually is sort of pertinent to this film in the time when it came out for me. So, like, at some point in the kind of probably like mid 90s, probably like 94 or 95 or something, like, I basically had just had a television in my room for the first couple years. And so, you know, back in the day when you would flip channels, I like flip channels, and I came on this History Channel thing about people being abducted by aliens. And yeah, it scared me to death. Best way to put it. Scared the living shit out of me. And I remember when this trailer came out back in the 90s, and like when she first hears that like beeping noise of the signal, like, that scared me. I was like, dude, no, I don't want to see this movie because the aliens are coming. I don't know why, but they're gonna start taking people. Like, for me, this was like a horror setup. It's like, yeah, we get the signal, but she's excited, but little does she know she's gonna get abducted.
She doesn't know, Jodie. You don't know. It's okay. Yeah. You don't know any better. It's sad.
So yeah, for me, this movie, like, legitimately kind of scared me for probably 5 years. I don't think I saw it until the mid 2000s, ironically.
I was never afraid of being abducted by aliens because I'm always just I've always been that type of person who's been like, I mean, I kind of want to see what's going on. But the first movie that I remember watching that scared me about alien abductions, when it finally sunk in that maybe these aren't benevolent little critters, was Fire in the Sky, which is also based on a true story about alien abduction. That scared the crap out of me because, like, it's very violent. It's not warm and cuddly. It's not E.T. And it's just that was the first one that scared the crap out of me. It was creepy. It was really, really just uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's a lot of this. You know, it's I feel like it's actually something that's not explored a lot, for whatever reason, as a horror premise. But
I think it's because, like, serial killers are easy because we all know that serial killers exist. Ghosts are, I feel like it should be as popular as the ghost, trope, because no one can actually prove that there's a ghost. It's all like, is it just shadows? Is it just, it's a dust speck? That's not a soul floating there. Oh, it's just a dust speck or something. You know what I mean? But for some reason, alien abduction horror movies aren't that common. I thought there was one that came out that was also based on a true story. It's about a psychologist, I think, in a cabin. And I think she's like talking to a bunch of people who claim that they had been abducted by aliens. I can't remember the name of it. I think the chick from Resident Evil was in it. Whose name?
I think I know what you're talking. I think there was one. It was called, like, I think the one you're talking about is called The Fourth Kind, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it's not really it's not, like you said, it's not all that explored, really. At least, like, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. For that and Fire in the Sky, but
I also feel like, another thing around this time period, right, is like the X-Files kind of stuff. X-Files took up a lot of that bandwidth. For these kind of
maybe
stories.
A lot of people were just like, X-Files has already done it like 8 times.
They have, right? It's like like every week is basically a different thing, monster or alien or something.
Yeah, if it's not like it's not some creepy person hiding under a bed.
Yeah.
Or in a closet.
Yeah.
Or the pyro. I started watching that from start to finish, and for some reason I stopped. I don't remember why, because I loved X-Files. I've never seen it from start to finish. I've seen most of the important episodes. I know I like it enough that I love Doggett's character, but not the other one, the other lady. Can't remember her name. That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, that show really was big for that kind of sci-fi stuff, like on the other axis, because like this was trying to, this is like a hard sci-fi that was sort of playing into the I don't know what you would call conspiracy or
definitely conspiracy, definitely hardcore, kind of like stuff. Government conspiracy a lot of the time. But both sides are fun. Like, I love the hard science stuff because I'm like, oh, I'll never be that smart. And then I was like, the X-Files stuff, I'm like, well, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's real.
Maybe.
Yeah. The truth is out there. Maybe the truth is out there.
Yeah, because I feel like you need them both. You need them both to balance, because those people all exist in real life. You have like the conspiracy fantasists, and then you have like the hard sciencey people. And I feel like you need that balance between the two.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so yeah, let's get into the plot of Contact. So just we can go over some different points and talk about them. So this film starts with like the CGI shot of Earth, and then we hear this sort of radio signals that are sort of modern music and stuff like that, and then it zooms back and it travels basically all the way back to like the farthest galaxy or something, and then we're sort of hearing signals over time. This shot was really cool. Like so I read that this was the longest CGI shot of its time.
I mean, I believe it. It was beautiful. It was really good.
Yeah, it's really well done. And it's quite a way to start this movie, right? Because like that's really kind of the thematic thing.
Well, I also like that shot because it kind of just keeps going, and there's moments of silence. There's a lot of moments of quiet, and then there's the signals, but it's also goes back to that line that's repeated, which is, if we are the only ones here, it's a huge waste of space. And it's kind of giving you that perspective of how big it is. And I liked that. And it's just, and it's just super pretty. It's just a really pretty shot.
Yeah, even still today, it's a very pretty shot. What's funny too, like that shot was probably made with computers that are equivalent to like your cell phone. Pretty much.
That's pretty cool to me. I mean, damn.
Yeah. So, and then it transitions into, so it's like Ellie's eye, so which is really cool. Like, and then
we're all Stardust.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's like, she's a very, like, you can tell she's a very precocious kid, like into science and stuff, and she's like sending this signal on shortwave radio, and then we see her dad, who's played by, who plays her dad? I forget. David Morrissey. Yeah. Her dad, Ted. And then they have these kind of conversations, and you can tell he's sort of really pushing her towards, science and stuff like that. Which is cool. That's not something you see a lot in the character. Like the young girl who's into science and like the dad who's like, yeah, that's good. So yeah, there's a lot of like stereotype breaking in this kind of thing.
Yeah, he's not cool. Like, oh, you should be out playing with other kids. You should be out playing with dolls or riding your bike or this, that, and the other thing. No, he's encouraging. He's a very encouraging dad. No matter, like, I feel like if she wanted to be a brain surgeon, he would have encouraged that. You know what I mean? He doesn't care exactly what she's interested in, but he's interested in it because it's his kid. And it's just the two of them. So I like that he's a very present dad. I don't know if we really go over what he did for a living, but he's very present.
Yeah, he seems very present. He seems like a good dad. They have this short kind of, it's like the person she contacts is this guy in Florida. I think it's Pensacola, Florida. And that's gonna come up later. And the actor who plays the young version is Jenna Malone, which is kind of cool.
Oh yeah, she's been acting forever. Oh my god.
Yeah. You find that a lot of there's a fair amount that have been on some like guy that comes to mind is I forget his name now, but there's a lot of them that were like Disney or Nickelodeon. They did a lot of work.
I like Elijah Wood. He's been acting since he was like a little kid. The first thing I ever saw Elijah Wood in was Forever Young with Mel Gibson and Jamie Lee Curtis, I believe. Pretty good movie. It's basically Captain America without the superpowers. But it's a pretty good 90s movie. Heartwarming, family friendly for the most part. But yeah, he's one that's been in everything. I love that he does weird stuff.
Yeah, he does weird stuff now.
Yep, I love that.
He's got that Lord of the Rings money, right? And he's like,
I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'm Frodo, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. I'm set for life, so I'm just gonna do these weird indie movies.
Pretty much. But yeah, I like Jenna Malone. I've always kind of liked her. I like how she grew up and started, changing the parts that she played, and but yeah, so it was nice to see her. She's good.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, like another person that comes to mind is like Leonardo DiCaprio. Like that dude was like in everything.
Yeah, you want to talk about made? Oh my god. I sometimes wonder if these actors are just made in a lab somewhere, because it's almost like this is just too weird. Like they're just too good that young. Because I don't always like child actors, because they're young and they're still learning the craft. But when they understand a relatively adult material, and they're good at acting and portraying that character, it's mind-blowing that someone so young can be that good.
Yeah. Yeah, he was great, and he's still great. Because like he would get every good role, basically. That's what they talked about. Leonardo, when he was a kid, he was just like every role that was good, he would get them all. Mm-hmm. And they got Titanic, and he was just kind of set for life. Yeah. So then in this movie, then we flash forward and we see Ellie when she's grown up, and it's Jodie Foster. And so she now works for this organization that's a part of SETI, which is this search for extraterrestrial intelligence, which is real. Mm-hmm. I don't know if people, just for anyone who wouldn't know, this is a real thing. This does exist. And then she meets this guy, Palmer Joss, who's played by Matthew McConaughey, and they're kind of opposites, but I guess, as you could say, opposites attract. He's, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is 90s McConaughey, which is like his other peak. So when we watched Interstellar, that was like the second peak, and this is like
that was the second wave of McConaughey.
He had a very good year in 97, because he was also in the Spielberg Amistad movie, which was big. So yeah, he was like in a lot of big movies in at this portion of the 90s. And then he kind of the early 2000s didn't treat him well. He was in a lot of rom-coms, and then Sahara.
Yeah, I felt like it was kind of like this weird, because he was coming down from like this high of the 90s, like you were saying, like he peaked, and then like the 2000s came along, and movies were very strange in the 2000s. Like there's some really, really good movies, but then it was almost like every studio didn't know how to evolve or progress in this new decade, this new era that was coming. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of actors took a couple hits from like their peak in the 90s. And he was definitely one of them, because How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is terrible. It is such a terrible movie. I remember seeing that in theaters. I don't remember why we went to see this movie. I think my mom wanted to take my sisters and I to like a girl date or something, but it was just so bad because I don't like Kate Hudson.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, I'm not the only one.
Have we seen her in anything in the last like 8 years?
Rom-com. She does I think she made like athletic wear or something like that, or I think she's kind of doing like a Joan Fonda did in the 80s. Like I'm not sure what it is, but she's trying it. But yeah, the early 2000s were not cool to McConaughey. I feel like, and I could be wrong, I feel like when McConaughey started getting like respected again, and this is gonna sound weird, was probably his part in Tropic Thunder.
That might have helped, yeah.
Because after that, I feel like I started seeing him like subtly more and more and more, and then True Detective came out, and he
was back. Yeah,
he was back with a vengeance, and it's like, actually, I can act, and I'm gonna do it really, really well. Like, I love True Detective.
Yeah, that season 1 is like incredible.
It really is
absolutely incredible.
It's so incredible. It speaks to me on so many different levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you're kind of right about, for sure, like when he did that one random role in Tropic Thunder, that was the beginning.
Because he wasn't the leading man in it. It's not a huge amount of screen time, but, and this is a guy who I feel like could have been in any number of the Marvel movies. Like I feel like I could have seen him in any number of movies in the MCU. Definitely could have pegged him as a Doctor Strange. That's just I love Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange, but I feel like McConaughey really could have brought something interesting to that. He could have done like a ton of different things, but he chose to go from a leading man to a minor part, not the leading man. And then True Detective came along, and he just, again, second wave. Now he's doing freaking Lincoln commercials. Like, who the hell is this guy? Who is he? Like, and he won an Oscar.
Yeah.
His second wave, he won an Oscar. It's like, I mean, think what you will about the Oscars and, you know, all that other stuff about Hollywood. Like, and he said, I want to thank God. Like, wow. Fuck.
Yeah, I know. I would think, yeah, whoever was the person in his team who decided, because like, yeah, he did a whole bunch of these roles. Like, I think it was one of like the Lincoln Lawyer and these other like very indie kind of movies, but his performances were all good. That led up to Dallas Buyers Club.
Yep.
Like that's why you got the Oscar, dude. You like put in the work.
Yeah, I think he had to put the work back in. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you put the work in for the 90s, that's great. Now people don't think you're that cool because you were in a bunch of Kate Hudson movies or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you have to earn it again. You have to earn it.
The other thing too is, you know, he like, when you're at the top, you live a different life and a different lifestyle, because like he was married to, I think it was Penelope Cruz at the time.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. I believe they were either married or they were like, you know, they'd been together for a few years. Like that's why they were in the movie Sahara together. Like you can see it's all like Sahara is the moment. And he's just like, he's a very like, there's a certain kind of like Texas hippie kind of guy.
Oh God, yes.
And Matthew McConaughey is the embodiment of that guy. Like I remember he did this interview with Oprah. It was him and Penelope Cruz with Oprah. And you could just tell the guy was like, he was like talking about, oh yeah, I don't shower. Like I just have my natural scent.
Well, he got arrested for playing his drums or gongs or something too loud in the nude, smoking a bunch of pot. Like he is a Jesus-loving hippie and he doesn't care. Like, can you imagine being on the red carpet and he looks great in his tux and everything, but you're like, damn, Matthew McConaughey looks great, but have you smelled him?
Yes, he hasn't taken a shower.
Like, come on. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are sweating on the red carpet, but damn. I mean, hey, you know, I think I've read his current wife, who I don't know if she's an actress or not or whatever, but I think, yeah, that was part of it. Like, they had to have some kind of compromise or something like that in their marriage, because he doesn't wear cologne, he doesn't wear deodorant, he's all natural.
He is such a hippie. Right? Like you said, it's Jesus-loving hippie.
And he's fine with it. And you know what? I'm fine with it.
Yeah. I mean, it is who he is. And it's, you know, but I feel like that, I don't think he was like that in the 90s. Right?
No, like I feel like he was definitely still a hippie and definitely smoking a lot of pot. But
he was probably smoking weed and like, you know, doing his thing, but he didn't get to that level until the 2000s when he just like, he was like, okay, this is who I am.
I think there's definitely, and there's more of a humility in his performances now than I think than there used to be. I think he's definitely grown into a more humble individual, and I can only speculate because we'll never know Matthew McConaughey, unfortunately. But there's just like there's a maturity and a humbleness, I feel like, to his roles that he plays now. You know, he's not just playing. He didn't go the action hero route. You know, he's still trying to save planet Earth and Interstellar, but he's not like, it's not like he's gonna go drill a rig into an asteroid that's shooting towards Earth or anything like that.
Yeah. So like, what were your first impressions of like seeing Ellie and Palmer sort of interact?
I liked it. There's definitely obviously like an attraction immediately, but I think part of it is more the fact that they are fire and ice. They are two, like, you couldn't get more opposite. You couldn't get two people that are more unlike one another. You know, he has this spirituality that, you know, is obviously very connected to his faith, and she has, I think she has more spirituality in her than she's willing to admit. But she's very scientific. She needs to see God in front of her. If God exists, she needs to shake his hand, you know. And Matthew McConaughey doesn't have to, because he just goes on faith.
He has faith, yeah.
And I like that the tables are turned on her later on in the film, where she finally sees it from his point of view. She finally sees it. You know, she doesn't shake God's hand per se, but she has a similar, well, I can't explain it, I just know it happened. Which is what people who have near-death experiences and have a religious moment, whatever it may be, tend to always say. I don't know how it happened, but it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that they, because that's sort of the thematic premise of this thing, right? Is like, of this movie, is questioning the the faith versus science, and is there sort of something where both of them kind of meet, you know? And this film kind of, I guess, presents a place where they both do meet together at some point. Because, like you said, and as we're going to see in her experience, she has something happens that she can't prove precisely, not with the evidence that a scientist would want, but that doesn't really invalidate her experience.
No, she won't let it invalidate it either, because she's very passionate about what happened to her, and to her mind, to her soul, to her body, to everything. You know, it's not just one part of her, it's everything.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really interesting. And then later on in the film, we meet this character, David Drumlin. It's played by Tom Skerritt. He is the president's scientific advisor. And this was, I thought this was an interesting sort of, to get into the perspective of like what the 90s was like, because this was a very sort of common refrain. Basically, he's there because he's like, well, you know, I don't know if what you guys are doing, you know, searching for extraterrestrial life is actually like, you know, practically useful for
or
people.
Profitable.
So like, why should the taxpayer be paying for this if there's not any profitable use for this research for research's sake? This is like very spot on for like the 90s, because there was a lot of this kind of stuff. Like, for instance, I think at some point in the 90s, the United States was considering building a Large Hadron Collider. And yeah, we were like, there were actual like scientists going to Congress. And it's kind of funny. Like, I forget, like, do you know that guy Michio Kaku? That's that guy. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Don't.
Yeah, he's like one of the big, you know, science guys who spends a lot of his time trying to communicate science to people. He talked about this. It's kind of very similar to like this, actually. So the United States was gonna build a Large Hadron Collider, right? And so then they had all these people go to Congress to talk about why they should fund it. and someone asked him, like, he's a scientist, right? Asked him straight up, like, do you think if we pay for this, will we find God? They asked him that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going there.
I think you could guess which side of the aisle that person was from. So yeah, long story short, it didn't get funded, and it ended up being built in like Switzerland. But yeah, so like at this time, there was a lot of people. A lot of this kind of stuff was just getting cut, right? Just like the science for science sake. It was just not. It was a bad time for NASA too. You know, in the 70s and sort of into the 80s, there was funding, and then they just kind of were like, nope, it's done. And it kind of really, you know, I don't know, set us back, but like there wasn't as much progress made. So this was a very common like refrain of like, yeah, I don't know if it's really useful, so we're just not going to do it anymore unless there's some kind of like applicable use that we can profit from.
Some kind of benefit.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. And you know, one of the things I never noticed, like the first couple of times I watched this, is like how much the David Drumlin character, he's really the antagonist in a lot of ways for her.
Yeah, he is an antagonist for sure. I think he definitely like, he has those moments where he's just like, oh, Ellie, you're so brilliant, while he's also belittling her at the same time and what she believes in and everything. But who is he to say that he's right in that, in telling her that what she's working towards is so superfluous, I guess. Yeah, and he definitely mansplains a lot. Like, this is a movie that's like an epitome of mansplaining. like the amount of times he cuts her off, you could make it a drinking game. Like, and on the one hand, I almost feel like, because Ellie's very factual, she's very scientific, she's very mathematical, clinical in a lot of ways, and I feel like his job is kind of to like, okay, it's going over their heads. You need to dumb it down, because she doesn't dumb anything down.
She doesn't.
But at the same time, she's not talking to people as if they're equals to her. And what he does, even though he cuts her off and mansplains a lot, he's dumbing it down for the James Woods character or the other people in the room who have no idea he knows what she's saying. He completely understands the language. And one of my favorite moments is when the signal's coming back and you have James Woods in that room and Tom Skerritt and like the military guys, and he immediately goes to work with her. Like, he doesn't even think about it. And maybe he used to be like that, and I think she sees him as a sellout, personally.
I think you're right. He's a very political figure. He's interesting because, like, you know, we'll talk about it when we get to some other points in the story about what he does. And you know, I mean, a lot of that has to do with like how the political world works.
Oh yeah, he plays the game, you know, like, he's a scientist who's also like the president of the United States right-hand scientist. Like, that is kind of a big deal. That is important. While he belittles Ellie and what her search for and her work, she belittles him. It's like, oh well, yeah, okay, whatever. She sees him as a sellout, you know. She belittles him in similar ways. But I also just think that's kind of her want to be respected by these people as well, to be taken seriously.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so like that friction between these two characters is like a lot of the center of what the film is before we see her, you know, get into the machine. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. And yeah, like you said, the mansplaining is like, it's like, whoa.
Oh man, it's out of this world.
It's out of this world. Oh my God. That's definitely something like when I was a kid, I didn't pick up on at all. Like, you know, all the microaggressions, all the like, she never gets credit. You know, yeah, we'll talk about it in another scene, but it's just like, it's on a certain level, it's kind of infuriating. You're like, oh my God, not again.
It's like, just let her talk, man. She's the one who found it. Like, come on. It's like, I do love that one moment when she's like, her and James Woods are going back and forth with each other. She's like, yeah, you think that in the whole world it's just for Americans? Like, you fucking moron. It's just for the United States.
Yeah, like the information about this discovery, it's like, oh, this is ours. It's proprietary, blah, 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 blah. It's like, what?
It's actually speaking the most universal language. And while I personally do not understand math, I know enough to get by in my day-to-day life. I do love that idea that math is a universal language, that anyone can understand it if you apply yourself. I cannot. I don't get it. As soon as you start adding letters to it, I'm lost.
Yeah, it becomes very complicated. Yeah, so later on, so we get this cool scene like where Ellie and Palmer, they're like at a party, and what's his name is there too, David Drumlin, and they kind of, get into, neither one of them really likes him, which is a thing they have in common. And then like there's this like the two of them kind of go away together, and then there's this cool moment where Palmer, like he says the same thing that her dad said, like, oh yeah, if we're the only things in the universe, it'd be a waste of space. Mm-hmm. And of course then they have sex, right? It's like, yep,
they get busy.
Got it.
She's like, wow, I like a man of the cloth.
Yeah. Yeah, their pairing is so interesting because, like, again, yeah, they're totally the opposite.
They should not be into each other. They should not. Like, but I think it's that witty repartee that does draw them together, because I think she really wants to convince him that it's all hooey, and he wants to convince her, like, hey, have a little bit more of an open mind, maybe.
Yeah. Have faith.
Have faith.
Yeah. Yeah, so then, like, later we get the scene where it's a flashback to like Ellie's dad when he died, and we get this really cool, like one of the coolest shots, like literally of all time, where she's running in slow motion, and then you see, so it's her running and she's going this way, and then the camera flips and it's her opening this cabinet to get some medicine. It's like, and it's totally seamless. It's an unbelievable shot. Like, it's so cool. Yeah, like I've seen people recreate this shot today using today's technology, but they actually did that basically practically, which is like even more crazy.
Yeah,
to think about.
It's a wonderful shot, and you don't see it coming, because why would you anyway? It's really, really good. I recognized it because I'm like, I think, because so like you said, I think I've kind of seen something similar done before. But no, it was a very seamless, very, very beautiful shot. And I'm trying to think of why it was there in the first place, only because, directors and cinematographers, they always have a reason for setting up a shot in one way. I'm not sure if you have some thoughts on it. I'm trying to think of maybe if it had some kind of symbolism to it. But it's a very, very good shot. And it's, very well done.
The only thing that would come to mind for me is like it felt a little similar to the stuff at the very beginning with the zooming way back to see the universe. It felt similar to that in a way, and because her dad and these kind of moments, and we're gonna see this sort of moment for her is important. I think maybe also this film is kind of also trying to talk a little bit about the relativity of time as well.
Okay.
That might be because we're going to talk about at the very end of the film, her younger self actually plays a role at the end of this story in an interesting way. So, but to be honest, I feel like Zemeckis is the type of guy who's all about the cool stuff.
And maybe he just wanted a cool shot. Maybe it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. He is big time into the cool stuff. That's one thing I kind of do like about him. Like, he's in the recent stuff, he's gone a little too far. Like he's so deep into the machinery of it that the story's gotten lost.
Yeah, I think there is something lacking in his later work as far as story goes. Because his movies always look good. But I feel like that storyteller-ness maybe is getting stifled just a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good way to put it, because it's too much about the bells and whistles and not about connecting the story for us. Like these films, there's all the stuff, but there's a point for us to connect with some kind of human character in these stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I like, so like basically her dad dies because she's not able to get him the medicine quickly enough. And I really liked, so there's a scene where she's like with a priest or whatever, and she's like mad. She's like, I should have had the medicine at the downstairs kitchen or something like that. She takes a very rational approach, right?
Oh yeah, if it was closer, he wouldn't be dead. She completely dismisses the fact that a priest is trying to comfort her, but she's like, no, it wasn't God. It was the fact that the medicine wasn't where it needed to be. But that's not her fault, because what if he had a heart attack upstairs? Then yeah, the medicine would have been where. What if it was downstairs, he had a heart attack upstairs? Or what if he was outside? What if he was at work?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
She's only thinking about the scenario as it played out, not in the millions of other ways it could have played out.
Exactly. But I just thought I really like that, because it shows like her approach, her way of thinking since she was a kid was like super rational, right? She's basically been an atheist since she was a little kid.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, her father kind of instills that in her at an early age. He doesn't explain the heaven and hell thing, or he just doesn't straight up say, "Oh, your mom went to heaven." He doesn't, but he doesn't tell her that God isn't real, because I think he's still, I mean, if she's that scientific, I think he knows what route she's going. But it shows that early break away from religion, that it was never for her at all. Because again, she's being very rational to a priest.
Exactly. And he even, again, this is another sort of part of the theme. He says, sometimes there are some things that just, we can't explain or something like that. Which, again, is sort of something she'll understand later. But at the time, she's like, no, it's just like very simple. If the medicine was closer, I could have saved him.
Exactly.
It's my fault. So yeah, I thought that, yeah. And the other thing we learned too is like, so her mom died in childbirth. So at that point, she has no parents anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't really go into like who raised her. Like, did she become a ward of the state? Did she have an aunt or uncle? Maybe it briefly touches on it, but no, it's not really talked about what happened to her afterwards, except that she started on this path of being super brilliant and a super overachiever, which I totally relate to. But yeah, it's they don't really talk too much about how she was raised after that, but I don't really think it's that important, because her father's death shapes her enough to where we kind of can put the pieces together ourselves.
Yeah, that stuff really drives her even stronger to be, to pursue science big time. So then David Drumlin, turns out, pulled their funding.
Dick.
And so, yeah. So she's hella mad at him for that. Like, she confronts him. He's like, well, I'm sorry. It's just, there's no use. Sorry. It's over. That's it. So then her and what's his name? Kent, who's played by William how do you say his last? Fitchner? Something like that?
Fitchner, yeah, I think.
He's the type of guy, you see him in a lot of movies, right?
Yeah, he was randomly in The Dark Knight. He was randomly in that opening scene. He works at the bank.
He works at the bank, yeah.
Like, he's in a lot of random things. Sometimes he has like a really major part, like in Contact. I mean, it's like a supporting role, but it's pretty important. He's important to Ellie. He can play like a bad guy. He can play a good guy. He was in Armageddon.
He was in Armageddon. He was like an astronaut, right?
Yeah, he was like the captain or something. pretty good in that because I love that movie. I have such a soft spot for Armageddon. I really, really do.
It's fun.
It's a fun movie. It's got a great cast. It was made at the perfect time with the perfect people before Michael Bay became a piece of shit. But yeah, he pops up in a lot of random things. I like him. He's always good.
Yeah, he's good here. He plays like a guy who's blind, but very empathetic.
And a good friend. You get the impression he's just a good guy. Superhuman hearing.
Yes.
He's basically Daredevil.
Yeah, he's basically Daredevil.
But I thought that was a nice touch. I thought it was interesting that someone who is missing a very important sense, the like sight is very important in their job, is still a huge asset to them because he's still listening to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically the two of them and some of their other teams, they try to go it alone, I guess, if you were. Go get private funding. So then we get this scene where Ellie's like at some kind of pitch meeting with some executive people at some foundation run by some rich guy. And she's talking to them and they're just like, nah, we're not going to give you the money. And she gets really passionate and we see like some camera, the CCTV camera's watching her, and someone calls the guy on the phone and he's like, okay, you get the money.
Yeah, I like how she looks at the camera too. She's not stupid. She's like, somebody's watching and she's like, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, like when we get into this billionaire character, that's a really interesting, very interesting what they decided to do with this character.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's kind of weirded out by the fact that someone's watching her, but she's too excited to really care because this is a huge deal. And she's like, I don't even need to fucking meet him. Just like, I'm gonna go get to work now. Bye. Yeah. I got what I wanted, the money, and I'm just because she basically spends a lot of time afterward just listening to signals from space, right? In the desert. Out in the desert in her car, just listening to shit, having a good time. Because I think she's very happy being alone. I think it's what she's used to. Not that she doesn't have friends or anything like that, but she could be listening with someone else. It's always good to have another set of eyes or another set of ears. But no, she's pretty content. She's happiest just listening to the void. Yeah. And so then we go 4 years later. She's still searching, doing all this stuff out in the desert. We get a couple scenes where they basically talk about the scientific community is kind of pushing her out. And a lot of that seems to have to do with, what's his name? Her antagonist. Tom Skerritt. Yeah. So there was some kind of stuff where they're talking about, like, they're going to kind of, because they're renting the time from these massive... it's like the Mexican government they're renting it from. Or something like that. Something like that, yeah. Because it's up on some mountain or something. So, really cool stuff. Because that's another real place too. Where there's all these big satellite dishes. And that's pretty cool. Like she's out there on her car and she like presses a button and the satellite array moves somewhere. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. That's gotta feel a little badass. That's gotta feel really badass, right? And you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna press this button and watch all these massive satellites tilt like 20 degrees. I think I want to listen to that side of the universe. Yeah. Oh my god. Right? That's so cool. That speaks to me. I'm just like, that'd be so cool. Yeah. And so then basically, I forget what he was doing before. I think it was like a journalist or something. He was trying to interview people. Yeah, he was something some like kind of journalist. Yeah, it's kind of vague, but he was trying to get an interview with Drumlin, and he kind of brushed him off, and he was like, "Hey, Jodie." So yeah, he found his true calling. Yeah, I think he was trying to write a book basically and interviewing people because his whole thing is like, and this is kind of a real thing, which is like science can't give people meaning. It doesn't. Well, there's the what is it?
I forget what they call it, like it's the is-ought gap. Can't really bridge that. Can't really bridge the is-ought gap. So cannot tell us what we ought to do. It just tells us how things are. You know.
Yeah.
The sun does this. Okay, right? that doesn't really tell us. Yeah. A black hole does this. Okay.
Nice. Why?
But yeah, exactly. For most of us humans, we're just sort of like our, I guess, sort of material need, or our needs are more intrinsically centered around what we think of ourselves in the bigger picture, you know, around society. And those things are totally sort of separate from science. Really, I think, as it should be, because it's like science isn't about answering those questions. That's for us to think about, right?
Yeah, it's for the faithful, the philosopher, you know. That's why there is philosophy, you know, like the why. Why? That's how it works, but why? You know, there's a ball of fire in space. Why? Like, and we can only answer that for so long, in so many different ways, you know. It's the great big why. And I like Palmer's character. That's the thing. Like, I didn't think I'd like him as much as I did end up liking him, because I think there's some people who can take life at face value and just go about their day. Maybe less so now, only because of social media, if that makes any sense. Because we're constantly watching other people in so many different ways, and how they and how they live their lives impacts how maybe we should live our life. I mean, we watch beauty gurus and home decor gurus so that they can tell us how we should decorate our bedroom, instead of just going on how we think we should decorate our bedroom, even though that's silly. It's a silly thing to worry about all the time. I think definitely some people need to be led, but that always sounds kind of negative. Oh, you need to be led. But I don't really know how to describe it in a way that doesn't sound bad, I guess. If that makes any sense. I think I'm losing my train of thought a little bit. But do you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
I know what you mean. People need some kind of meaning, or some sort of thing that's driving them to do. Because, I mean, if you really think about it, like, all of us are all working together to create this society, right? And a lot of that is basically built on faith, the belief that the other person is going to do reciprocity. They're going to do for us when we do good for them. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like like anyone who, you know, you go out and you get food from someone else. I mean, just like, especially now, like, do you know if the other person's not going to like spit on your food or cough on your food? You don't.
No, but you have to hope and have faith that they'll just give you your burger, dude. Like, yeah. Like, I still don't like going to like drive-thrus late at night, because I'm like, what if? Because I've been in that situation where someone's come in 2 minutes before we close, and I'm like, I fucking hate your guts.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So like, there's that's a real thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff in society that's just taken on faith purely, like, where we trust that other people are going to do the right thing. And, you know, society still kind of works.
Yeah, with all its flaws, like, like, I always have faith that people are going to merge properly, and they never do. I'm always let down when I get into a car. Every time I get into a car, I'm let down by another human being. I still get in the car. I still do my errands in the morning. I still come back annoyed that no one in the world seems to know how to merge into one lane. But again, I still get back in the car. And someone might say, oh, that's because of necessity. You need to get back into the car because you need to get from A to Z, from Z back to A. But I could just have shit. I could just have everything delivered. I choose to go out in society because, as much of an introvert as I am, sometimes I just need that tiny little bit of communication to hold me over until the next day. And I think having faith in humanity is different than having faith in, say, God or whatever your religious belief may be. You have faith that God has a plan specifically for you, and that makes you feel very special. There's billions of people in the world, but God has a specific plan just for you. And that's part of the appeal. That's part of, why people worship.
I mean, it's a common thing. Like religion goes back a long time. Basically, since human beings have had civilization, it's just a common thing that props up in people's heads. Like, oh, well, look at how we have all this stuff. How we're able to do all these things. How can that be? How can there be just us? And our civilization is able to do all these amazing things. There has to be some bigger reason why.
Yeah, and I feel like the Matthew McConaughey character would be like, oh, well, look at this civilization. They prayed that rain would come, and they had a great harvest. Therefore, they're going to pray to the rain god, whatever the rain god's name is. Jodie Foster's character would be like, no, at that specific time of year, there was a lot of rain because of what was happening in the sky, X, Y, and Z, and that's why they had a magnificent harvest. It's not because of a god. But then there's those people in the middle who are just like, I mean, yeah, it makes sense that the weather would make for good crops and harvest. Mm-hmm. But what if?
Those are like the people like, I'm just going to pray anyway, just to make sure. It can't hurt, right?
Exactly. And that's how I think organized religion definitely changed a lot of things. But, it still makes you wonder, it still makes you like, that's why I love lore and myth and all that other stuff, because I'm like, sometimes it's just a little too coincidental. Sometimes. Which is why I'm more of a spiritual person than a religious person. I hate organized religion. But that's a conversation for another time. Or for this one, actually. It might be poignant.
I don't know if they ever really get directly into like the organized religion. They kind of keep it spiritual versus science. Yeah. Which is good, because like if imagine if the Palmer or Joss character was like, I don't know, like literally a priest or something, or like he was like a Catholic priest or like a Catholic cardinal, then it's like a totally different, because then like you're saying, like there's an institution behind the Catholic Church, like that is its own thing, and it's done as an institution, has done a lot of questionable to terrible things. But just like, the hippy dippy Matthew McConaughey who plays bongo drums when he's high, is that guy a threat to the world? Probably not. We can like kind of have a conversation about spiritualism with him.
Exactly. And he's the kind of guy I would want to have a conversation about spiritualism with, because he could be like, I respect your opinion, but here's this side of things. I mean, maybe I wouldn't be the best person because I wasn't raised an atheist. But I feel like
you guys would have a bit in common, probably, because you're both sort of raised religious.
I'd be pretty bitter personally, but but he's someone that you can at least fantasize about having a open-minded and rational conversation with, because he just wants people to. He's an interesting character because he wants people to have faith, but he's not going to be mad if you don't, if that makes any sense. Yeah, for sure. All this stuff is really interesting. And like, so again, we saw Palmer, he was on CNN with Larry King. That's like another big part of this is like, there's a lot of CNN stuff. There's like a Crossfire segment we see later. It's just a lot of CNN. CNN was the flagship for this movie. It was just like, we're banking on all this archival shit. But at the same time, it grounds you in that reality. It's like, oh, maybe this could actually happen. Mm-hmm. This is what it would actually play out in the media in 1997. And what's funny is like Larry King basically looks the same. He just stopped aging. Yeah, like 35 years ago, like he looks exactly the same. He could be 75. He could be 95. We really don't know at this point. We don't know. We just like, he's an alien, right? Oh yeah, he's a reptilian shape-shifting monster.
Like he just steals someone's body, like, and then he transforms the body into the Larry King, even though it's like a 20-year-old.
Yep, pretty much. And his shoulders have always freaked me out. I don't know why.
Yeah,
He always looks
they're
like a
a little bony.
gargoyle, just like I'm
Yeah, it's
judging
like-
you. I'm gonna ask these questions that seem really cool, but really they're just
So Lily, so you say you don't believe in religion? Why is that? Doesn't make sense.
Well, Larry, your aging makes no sense to me. Like, I think he's a vampire.
Yeah. That makes total sense to me if he was a vampire. Yeah.
It's kind of the same as
I
like
buy
George
that.
Bush. Like George Bush stopped aging after he left the White House. Like he's just been the same.
Yeah.
Just totally the same.
Yeah.
And Bill Clinton looks like Lurch. It's just like, ugh. Get away. He's drinking the same shit that Prince Philip probably drinks. It's like, stop. It's freaking me out.
Oh my god. Okay, so then in the movie we finally get to the point where she hears the signal. And they're like, oh my god. That's probably gotta be like, I think they sell this really well too. Cause like that's a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
That moment when you hear aliens for the first time. Like that's the biggest discovery, I mean, ever?
Yeah.
Oh, right?
Everyone's losing their shit. Like nobody's gonna
Yeah.
sleep afterwards. Like how can you even like
Yeah.
sleep after that? And it's just they're all nerding out, and it's just
Yeah.
great. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And so they're like trying to record the signal, and then it comes and it's like boop boop boop, and then it stops, but then it starts coming in again, and then they're noticing that it's sending, so it'll send all the prime numbers in sequence
Mm-hmm.
between like 1 and 101. And so yeah, they're like you said, they're nerding out. They're just trying to figure out what this thing is, right? So then they make an announcement to the world, hey, we have encountered an alien signal. And it becomes a circus.
Yes, immediately.
Immediately.
The tanks are there. The drones are there. Everybody's there. James Woods is there.
Yeah, James Woods is there. He's he leads the National Security Council. And he's like, yeah, these military guys, because that's another thing too, like the way that the military and science interact, because they actually have to interact a lot. Manhattan Project kind of stuff doesn't always go well. Let's put it that way. The two minds think very differently about how to approach a lot of stuff, and I feel like this film kind of covers that pretty well, I'd say. Because yeah, I just think there was this interesting story, like from the Manhattan Project. There was this one guy who he was some scientist, and he was a super inquisitive guy, and so he was into like picking locks or something like that, and so he picked everyone's lock for their like their private quarters or whatever, and then he like gave this list of things to the military of like, okay, yeah, if you I did it just because like I like doing that for fun. Like if you want to make seriously, and it was like, if you want to make this like more foolproof, you should do these things. And the military's, like they basically saw him as a security threat. And
Did he disappear?
He didn't disappear, but they kind of they did what the military does. They put extra people around him all the time, and they treated him like he was gonna leak information or something.
Don't give this guy any bobby pins or paper clips.
Yeah, you were banned from having paper. Like, yeah, they just banned him from a bunch of stuff. They didn't do what he said to do to like actually increase security.
Of course not.
Yeah. So I just think of that because like that's the perfect sort of way. Like they're not concerned with like doing the thing that makes sense or is right. It's all about controlling the information, controlling whatever the technology is, and monopolizing on it for the national interest, which is the military interest, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
So this was the interesting part of the movie too. So like they're doing different stuff to decode the sequence, right? And like, you know, we were talking about before, what's his name shows up, David Drumlin shows up, and then he kind of takes over, right? he's there with James Woods, and he starts taking over.
Hostile takeover.
A very hostile takeover. What's funny too, right, is like, so all this work that they're doing, the David Drumlin character was like, this is useless. And now he's like actively trying to take over.
Yep.
Yeah. Very, again, all this stuff that's like infuriating, right?
It's so infuriating because you're like, 20 minutes ago in the movie, you were a huge dick and said this was a waste of time and completely useless. And now as soon as it benefits you, as soon as you can either profit off it, weaponize it, monopolize it, it's useful to you.
Yeah.
And damn anybody who gets in your way.
Yeah, he's gonna steamroll people. But yeah, like you were saying before, there's this cool scene where like they're discovering different parts of the signal, and they're all kind of working together to science it out, you know. And so then they discover that there is a video embedded in the signal that's being sent.
Oh damn!
And guess who it is? It's
Herr Hitler.
Yes, it's Adolf Hitler. It's like from 1936 Summer Olympics.
You just see there's a shot of Jodie Foster's face. She's just like, oh no, honey.
Yeah. And then the James Woods character is like, dude, because like at one point she tells the military people to like kind of get out. And then he's like, nah, y'all get back in. We got a problem.
They're sending us videos of Hitler. I mean, I would probably be a little freaked out too if the first video they sent back was literally Adolf Hitler. Not always the best. Maybe we should, err on the side of caution.
That would be so bad.
She's so disappointed.
Yeah, I know.
She's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's like the crowning achievement of basically all of science. And then Adolf fucking Hitler steps out.
Yeah, and everything they did like during that Nazi era of like science, which was mostly just torture for a lot of people, is just, it doesn't send a very good message for the scientific community either. It's just kind of like, oh shit, not good.
Yeah, it's like it's like you spent all this time to bake this beautiful like turkey, and then just like this like
it's burnt, like, it's raw.
Yeah. And then like a xenomorph jumps out of it. You're like, no. A face hugger just attacks someone.
Backspace.
Like, no!
Yeah. Backspace. It got John hurt again.
Yeah. Fuck. Yeah, exactly.
He just can't make it in science movies. He can't get away from it.
Yeah. So then, now this is like a big deal. And so then they explain this away. They're like, okay, so here's why it's Hitler. Because that was the first signal that was strong enough to get out of the planet. So Jodie Foster's like, look, the aliens don't know what Hitler's about. They don't understand any of that. It's just the first thing that they got from us. So they're not space Nazis. No,
they're not. They're just sending it back. Okay. If anything, we're hoping, oh, this guy's a dick. Let's send it back. Like, like I like how she's talking to like that one lady. I think she's like the press secretary or something like Bassett, that. Right? Yeah, Angela Bassett. She's like, there's no way they could actually know what a Nazi is. Okay. Like there's absolutely no reason that they would idolize Hitler. This makes more sense. And it just, it just bothers me so much when she's being so reasonable to people. And sometimes her attitude comes across as pushy or something like that. But she's being very reasonable. It's like, let's use our brains for a second. And everyone's just like, shut up. What do you know?
Yeah.
It's not like she's been devoting her whole life to this or anything.
There's definitely, and this is another thing that I feel like the film is kind of touching on, is like there's the optics of like how to deal with these things, right? Especially in the political world. And she's so purely in the science world that she's not trying to be concerned with the optics, which is understandable. But that's where like the Drumlin character kind of comes in, and he comes in again here, where like there's this White House meeting or whatever, and then he takes credit. And then like I think it's supposed to be she was supposed to like this is one scene where she was supposed to speak, but then Drumlin does instead, and he gets all the credit, and it's just like dude, this is so annoying. But Drumlin's the one who deals with sort of, I guess, diffusing because it probably got out that it was like what they got back was Hitler. And then there's a scene of him like they do this really cool scene in sort of like the Forrest Gump style where they insert the characters into archival footage. And he's explaining he's basically politically explaining away why it was Hitler without saying that what we got was Hitler back.
Yeah.
You know, and so he sort of does a really he's the PR guy, right?
Yes, exactly. He's the science PR guy, the poster guy. And again, he's there to diffuse the situations and then dumb down what Jodie Foster is trying to say, because Jodie Foster is trying to get a lot of words out in a very short period of time to people who don't understand any of it. And yeah, it's rude what he does, and it's kind of shitty, but he's just like, you're not really the best person. Like, it's also about personality too, I feel like, and image, and
yeah,
unfortunately those things do matter. they matter.
Yeah, and that's why people like him go to Washington, you know, because that's his area of expertise, really, is the politics, the getting in front of the cameras, talking to the president, talking to the media, talking to, you know, the freaking head of the NSA or whatever, who's a total maniac. But you gotta reel this dude in because he's basically your boss.
Pretty much, they're sending us, you know, blueprints for a bomb. It's like, yeah, because that makes sense. Like, like really, dude.
Or it's a Trojan horse. The whole army's gonna come out. Like, okay, dude. like, yeah. It's just what's funny too is like that's one of the most realistic things that someone would say, because that's so dumb. It's like if okay, let's imagine a civilization that's intergalactic. They could just come here and invade us and occupy us if they wanted. Literally. That's it. Why would they need us to build a freaking Stargate, Atlantis kind of shit?
They wouldn't.
They wouldn't. They would just fly here and just be like, we are your new leaders. We are colonizing you for whatever reason.
We do not come in peace. It's like, yeah, it's so stupid. Like, there's no reason to believe that they would be malevolent. They've given the human beings in contact no reason to suspect. They haven't blown anything up by accident. There hasn't been some Armageddon type thing again to where they're like, oh shit, they accidentally blew up the White House, but they're actually really nice. It's like, yeah. There hasn't been some fuck up on the aliens part that would make anyone think like, oh yeah, it's a Trojan horse. They know if it, they've said hi. That's literally all they've done is say hi. It's like, hey,
yeah. What'd you think of like all the kind of 90s technology that we saw in here? All the laptops.
My god, those monitors. They're huge. Like, they're just enormous. Like, everything's so big and clunky, but that was like state of the art. I don't know. I think it's funny.
One of my favorite things is like there's a scene later where she has to talk to the eccentric billionaire, and so like there's this thing set up in her like hotel room. So it's this massive television connected to a laptop, connected to like a satellite dish, and all that so that you can do a FaceTime with this guy in space.
Yeah, literally. Just wait 20 years, you can have one of these.
Yeah. I love that. It's like, what is this thing doing?
Yeah, 10 more years, just make sure you're next to a tower. Over here, it's just kind of like, you got Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I feel like people, like, there's so many things people take for granted, right? Like, you get internet like that.
I also love how crystal clear their FaceTimes are. Like, it's not even that crystal clear right now. Like,
it's not that. It's never that clear.
That's something that bugs me about like holiday commercials when you have the grandkids talking to the grandparents like via FaceTime, and the picture is so crystal clear, and I'm like, That's bullshit. We'd be seeing that poor connection thing popping up all the time. What are you talking about? You move an inch and the connection gets poor. It's like, ugh. I don't know. I don't know why that bothers me so much, but it does. I'm like, that's not realistic.
I mean, there's no way in the 90s you got a clear connection with someone else.
Yeah, James Wood and Angela Bassett at one point are having a FaceTime convo, and he's like coming in crystal clear, no lag whatsoever. Like, even we have a lag right now. We have probably like a 2-second lag on our communication end, and we are living in 2020.
I know. I was like, nah, there's no way it's this good.
John Hurt's floating in space, and there's no lag.
Yeah, it's utterly ridiculous. Yeah, but that was funny. I thought that stuff was really, really cool because, like, I feel like the last 3 films have all been at different points since there's all been different, stages of technology. So it's just funny to like the 90s for us was like when we were growing up, and now seeing it from that lens, you're like, whoa, like that's like ancient
yeah
kind of stuff.
Like they have like
scary.
10 computer screens going at once in their lab. Like, again, the monitors are just so huge. Like, you know how like on like an old, I don't know, Dell or something, the screen would kind of have that oval, or not oval, but it would be like pushed out a little bit. And there's all of that. Like, it's like, wow. And now we have flat screen computers.
Those things were heavy. Heavy.
Oh my God. And just the computer portion of it alone. Like, make sure you got your little Rolodex of floppy disks.
I know. Yeah. That's one of the things, like, I don't know if they did that in Star Trek, but they definitely did it in Star Wars, where people are sending floppies or like using massive floppy drives.
Yeah, Princess Leia shoves a floppy disk into freaking R2-D2 and it gets jammed.
Yeah.
Like if a floppy disk jammed, like if you put it in the wrong way, because it would have like that silver portion of it, and I think it pulled back a little bit or something. But yeah.
Yeah.
Star Trek does it a little bit. They have like little discs, little square discs and stuff like that they have data in. But yeah, the floppy disk was a huge inspiration.
that is an artifact of a bygone era. Like, there is like all information now is passed through the internet.
Yeah, and if you put a floppy disk in front of a 10-year-old, he would have no idea what it was.
No idea.
He would have to be a huge tech nerd maybe to know what it was.
Yeah. No idea.
But none. Or like you remember how you used to have like memory cards for like the PS1 or something like that? Or for maybe like early gaming devices, you'd need your little game card. Just stick it in there, make sure you save your game. No game card. What? I need to save where I was in Grand Theft Auto.
What? Like, are you telling me that your PS1 didn't have internal storage for your game? You couldn't just download your game from the internet and have it on your device?
No, you had to go and buy a physical disc.
Yeah.
And if you think it sucked when a DVD skipped.
Oh my God. You're right, yeah. Or like playing N64 and like you gotta blow on the cartridge, get the dust out of there.
You have to take like a toothpick and like get out all the fuzz and everything like that. Yep.
Yeah, totally bygone era.
I was just gonna say, bygone is the perfect way to, like, you fucking kids have no idea how easy you have it.
No idea.
Everything's saved to a server now or something. That's what I assume it is. God.
That's so crazy. If you told someone in like the Atari era, in the future you will have a console that is connected to a wireless interface that allows you to download any game at any time and play it with any human being on the planet. And they'd be like, what?
Yeah, right. Okay. I'm gonna go back to playing Mario Kart.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back to jumping on toads.
Yeah, you know what my first video game was? It was freaking Solitaire.
Yes, Solitaire.
Solitaire, and then what was it? Like the mine game? I forget what it was.
Minesweeper.
Yep. Oh my God. Or I think my brother played Galaga.
I feel like there was one other game, but yeah, Minesweeper and Solitaire were like,
and they were free.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So so then later they find out there's even more stuff on this signal being sent. There's an image with some pages of text, and so it's some kind of the aliens are trying to tell us to do something, basically, right? And so then they get a team of people together trying to figure out what is this thing. And then we get this cool scene where she's basically driving to work, and it's become Woodstock.
Oh yeah, there's people from all different walks of life. You got your hippies, you got your conspiracy theorists, your alien enthusiasts, and of course your crazy religious zealot.
Super crazy right-wing nut job. Basically like the Westboro Baptist Church kind of people. Oof. Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's what the guy came off to me as. What was that guy's? Forget that guy's name.
I don't remember if he actually had a name, or do you just mean the actor's name?
The character, yeah. I don't feel like the character they say his name. He's just right-wing crazy guy, basically.
That nut job.
Yeah, but I forget the name of the actor. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Ellie, you need to stop kicking me.
Oh no.
She does these little rabbit kicks sometimes when she's sleeping. Just lay down. Just lay down. There we go.
Because he's related to another actor. Man, I can't find it. Yeah, I can't find it. Anyway, so yeah, this guy is super ominous too, right? Because like from the jump, he's like, he sees her and he's like, "You people,
they're the enemy."
It's like, whoa.
Yeah, this is the part of the movie that I remembered the most from watching it as a kid, because when you grow up in a church, these are supposed to be the good guys. And they're not. And I just remember him scaring the crap out of me as a kid. Just frightening me. And again, it's so crazy to me that my parents let us watch this because, again, the main character is an atheist.
Yeah.
And a character that's being portrayed as evil, as a terrorist, is a white Christian crazy pants dude. And it scared me. It scared the crap out of me.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like, not only that, but he's got this blonde hair. Like he's like the spitting image of what we would think of as like the evangelical preacher,
Exactly. Yeah. And you're growing up Christian, you're raised to think, oh no, he is the good guy. I'm like, no, he's not. He's being really awful, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, the actor, it's Jake Busey, so it's like Gary Busey's brother or something like that.
It's the teeth. The teeth should have ticked me off about that.
Yeah, those teeth don't lie. And what's funny too? Gary Busey was like kind of. He was a normal guy until he had an accident on a motorcycle.
Yeah, I heard that he it was like painkillers and stuff like that kind of messed him up a little bit. I think he may have become an addict or something like that, which is actually really sad if that's the case.
It is sad. Yeah, I mean when you have major trauma to your head, it messes with you.
Yeah,
just straight up, But anyway, yeah. So the Jake Busey character, he's this kind of nutty guy, and then. So we get this really cool scene where they have there's like this cloak and dagger meeting with the guy, the billionaire guy, S.R. Haddon, where they like kind of whisk her away into this room, and there's like cameras watching her all the time. And this is the guy who's been funding her research, and she finally meets him. And this dude is eccentric. This dude is like, he's got these long fingernails and like he's wearing these glasses and he's bald.
He's also wearing makeup because he's so sickly that he has no color to his face. So he's got like rouge on or like blush and like a little bit. I think there's some eyeliner on there. I'm not sure. But yeah, he's pretty sick, and yeah, he's been following her career.
Yeah, very much so. Like that's like the prequels or whatever. Like reminds me of that. So he basically decoded the Matrix for her. So silly humans thinking in two-dimensional space is basically like the thing that was sent was like a three-dimensional blueprint. And so if you think of it that way, then it makes sense.
I'm sorry for being human and thinking in only 2 dimensions.
Yeah.
We would have gotten there. No, they wouldn't have. The thing is, if he hadn't helped him, I think they probably would have been spinning their wheels for a really long time.
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah. So they figure out that this is a schematic for a machine. It's like, what? Yeah, which is awesome. And so now the thing becomes, what are we going to do? Are we going to build it? How are we going to build it? Who's going to build it? Who's going to go? Who's
going to pay for it?
Who's going to pay for it? And then, the speculation runs rampant, right? People. So I'm wondering, what do you think do you think that if this really happened, like today, 2020, well, let's say it happened in 2019 and there was no coronavirus. Let's put it like maybe that's a better way to put it, because then I think people would be more willing to do these kind of things. I think now. Well, anyway. So, how do you think today's media landscape would react, and like the sort of political landscape?
Oh God. I think they would build it, but I think it would definitely take longer than how it's portrayed in the movie. Because it feels like if any time passes besides just the 4 years from her being in Puerto Rico then to Mexico, I feel like maybe it would take a lot longer. I feel like Elon Musk would definitely be involved in some way.
Yeah, he'd want to be the one to go in the freaking machine or whatever. Yep.
He would want to be involved in some way. I think it would probably happen. Because if it got out, if the government or the governments of the world couldn't keep it silent from us little folk, yeah, I think it would probably happen because at this point, why not?
Yeah, I guess so. This is I think I'll just bring it up now just to talk about. This is an interesting thing. So there's a blueprint for this machine, right? If the blueprint ever got out, like, I feel like there'd be a lot. Like, I feel like there'd be, like, would an Elon Musk type person just build one?
Yeah, probably. Right? It's the internet. If it got on the internet, oh, for sure. And it would. Like, that shit would get leaked. Like a freaking blockbuster movie. It would get leaked. Yeah. I think there would definitely be a lot more. That's the thing why I would think it would take longer, is because so many people would be, like, haggling over it. Who has the right to build it? Why don't we all have the right to build one? And we all send someone wherever sending them actually is. It's easier because it's kind of in a little vacuum in the 90s because we don't have the internet as we know it today. Because there's a lot of powerful countries that I think would want one and would want to be the first. It would be a new kind of space race. Only it's a very different space race. We're not going to the moon this time. We don't actually know where the fuck we're going.
Yeah, because this one, it seems like basically there's a little posturing, right? So we get the scene where Japan, they say, okay, we just want proprietary information for the technology, but we don't want to send a Japanese person into the machine. So we're cool with conceding that. As long as we get, that's the thing we want. And then, of course, there's like 5 Americans or whatever.
And the rest of them are Americans.
Yeah. So there's like 5 Americans. These freaking people are like, yeah, send me in, And then there's like a couple Russians and like probably some Europeans, like a French guy or whatever.
Yeah, that's the thing. I wonder if there'd be some kind of bidding war involved, where I feel like all like the most important nations would be involved in some way, contributing different materials or different manpower, X, Y, and Z. But who would actually have the honor to go, like from what nationality or country or program?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be interesting because, like, I feel like the main thing is like obviously, and so again in this movie, it's basically treated as a NASA project because they do it at Cape Canaveral where all these other NASA things happen. So it's sort of treated like that. Be interesting to see, like, in today's world, would we basically do that? Would it just be easier to do it at in that location, or would it be somewhere else? Would it still be international? Because I feel like the thing now is like it'd be like a China versus USA kind of thing, and maybe on the China side would be some other countries, but on the USA side would be like USA and Europe and some other maybe other countries. I feel like that's kind of the dichotomy now, as opposed to at that time. It's like national versus international.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting. So they, the plans come out, the plans get leaked, and they leak this thing of like there's a person inside of the little, pod. Like, oh my God, there's a person has to be sent.
You didn't tell us that from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plot
So
twist.
then, yeah, and so then there's this big thing, right, where what's his name? They all of them meet with the president, right? And they have this big powwow, and they're like, okay, we're gonna do it, we're gonna build it. And because that was a question, right? Like, are we actually gonna do this? Are we actually gonna build this thing? And so then to build it with an international effort, and there's gonna be a task force to decide who goes in the machine. And then David Drumlin resigns. So Ellie was afraid that he was going to kind of tip the scale against her. And instead it's like, no, I'm going to basically it's like, I'm going to run against you.
Pretty much. Dick move.
So interesting thing too. So they talk about the cost. And so basically they say the cost is like $1/3 of $1 trillion to $500 billion. Which in today's world is like nothing, ironically.
Like, it's actually relatively cheap.
Yeah. So I thought that was funny, just thinking about like, oh my God, it's $1/3 of $1 trillion. It's like, sounds like a good deal to me.
Take it.
Yeah. So yeah, so they choose 10 scientist candidates. I thought this was really interesting too. So like the head guy before was this NASA astronaut, and then he drops out because his family's like, don't go, don't do it.
It's like it's a one-way trip.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, and again, like that's why I'm so glad we watched like First Man. I mean, if you think about like, there are people that just died, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even go into space. They were just a part of the program and they died.
Yep.
So this is an alien thing made by humans. Like, even if you do succeed, you might not come back. You might just be put in the thing. It's like, oops, it blew up. We did the wrong thing because we couldn't understand the math. Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense. And that's what kind of makes her character so interesting, right? Because she's super determined.
Oh, yeah.
To do it. She's super determined, and she really believes in, doing this thing for, I forget, I remember that there's they have a conversation, him and Matthew McConaughey, they have this discussion about why she wants to do it, like how it's important for her. Because, yeah, I mean, it's a very selfless thing, right? To kind of be the one who goes in, to be the first one in, because you may not come back, and that's a big risk.
Yeah, and you just have to go into it thinking, yeah, I'm not going to come back, because you don't want to get that hope up of, oh, no, I'll be back in like 5 minutes, because we don't know how long you're going to be gone. Matthew McConaughey brings it up at one point in the movie where he's just like, if, time will pass very differently. If you're back in like 50, 60 years, everyone will be dead, more than likely. Like, worst case scenario, we're all dead.
Yeah, I really like that you brought that up. And again, this is another thing where it's sort of similar to Interstellar, and he brings up the the theory of relativity, which is like, yeah, like you said, you could be gone, and then it's, who knows, like it could be any amount of time, right?
Yep.
Could be any amount of time. You could come back, and then it's like you've been gone for a day, a year, a decade, 100 years. Who knows, right?
Yeah, and it'll seem seamless to her, or minutes or seconds, or maybe even timeless. Like in this scenario, we don't know if you'll even maybe she'll lose track of time entirely.
Yeah, we have no idea. No idea. I mean, basically no one knows what the thing does, right?
Now.
They just say, oh, do this thing, press the button.
Could be a giant microwave. We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, to serve man.
Literally.
Make this machine, and then we'll drop you. It's like drops the pot into like the like a monster's mouth, and it just eats you.
It's like, oh, thank God, we've been trying to feed this space dragon for a really long time, and now we have the perfect resource.
Space dragon. Oh my God. So then there's this big. So basically, she's the front runner, right? And there's this big kind of thing where she's answering all these questions in front of this committee, yeah. And then Palmer kind of just drops the hammer on her, and he asks the big question, like, do you consider yourself a spiritual person, and do you believe in God? And she doesn't say no, but she basically says no by not saying yes. Says no, yeah. And that's disqualifying. It's disqualifying for her, unfortunately. Yeah, and then hey, guess who? The very political David Drumlin is willing to say whatever it takes to get the job. And he says some like, I don't know, like he's gonna say what he wants people to hear to get to where he wants to be.
Pretty much.
And so then he gets the job. So okay, now comes the big question, right? So if you were in her position, and the way I want to pose this question is like, it could, it doesn't have to be a spiritual thing. It could just be like, you have to, that they're trying to get you to say something you don't believe, basically, right? So it's like, would you answer with integrity, or would you give them the answer they want to hear so you could get what you wanted?
No. I'd just be like, nah, I don't believe in God. If that's an issue, your priorities are pretty fucked up. I thought we were going to space for exploration, not to find Jesus. Yeah. Like, I mean, at that point, I know I'm not going to get the job, so I might as well just tell them what I actually think. It's just like, this is for the betterment of mankind, not to shake Christ's hand. Like, no. Like, I'm not going to get the job. That sucks. You guys are assholes.
I just imagine her, like, the pod drops. She like sees Jesus.
It's like, ow. And what I think is interesting, and maybe if McConaughey had gone, maybe the aliens would have taken the form of whatever he thought Jesus was, because they took a form that she would recognize and trust.
Yeah.
So if a religious person went, maybe they would see their interpretation of Jesus.
Wouldn't that have been funny? He would have come out and said, yeah, I saw Jesus. Jesus said blah, blah, blah. And Jesus said that this is the next step in our civilization, and we have to wait for the next step. But yeah, I saw Jesus.
Yeah, so in that case, he would have become a prophet you know, like, so I think it just depends on who goes. I think they want to, I don't know if like maybe the people in the movie had some idea that maybe that's what would happen. I mean, I seriously doubt it. But if you send a religious person, they're going to come back with a religious message in some way. So
this is all politics, really. This is how politics really works, right? Because it's just people who have different opinions, different sort of beliefs, different value systems.
yeah, and when was the last time there was a politician who identified as a fucking atheist?
Basically, in America, never.
It's like, that's not a thing.
Never.
We have to pretend to go to church if we're a politician. We have to say, oh yeah, I'm a Protestant. I'm an Episcopalian. It's just like, you have to be something. It's like,
you do. Yeah.
Part of JFK's appeal and part of his not appeal to some people was he was Catholic. Mm-hmm. It's like, it was a huge deal. He was Catholic.
Yeah.
So like, oh, how is that going to affect your leadership? Same with that lady who just got elected to the Supreme Court justice. How is that going to affect? Like, you're telling me that's not going to affect something?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that ingrained? This is coming from a former religious person. It's not that ingrained in you. Even after I had stopped going to church, there were things that came up in my life that brought me right back to my faith. It was just like, well, how would I do this if I was a religious person? Or this is too close to home. Or it's just, I think that's an entirely different fucking topic. But, yeah, it's just, that part of the movie made me really mad. When he called her out on that, I'm like,
yeah, I feel like, honestly, if it were me, if I really, really, really wanted it, I would have given a very political answer that would have gotten as close as I could within my own self-integrity to give them what they wanted without totally, just, I don't know. I would have given the political answer, basically. I think is what, if I really wanted it that bad, if I was like, okay, I have to do this. This is my calling.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's different. It's different for her too, because like she's been doing this, she's been working towards this one goal her whole life, and she hasn't betrayed her own moral compass at all. Mm-hmm. Which I think is funny that like she carries around the little compass the whole time, because she has a very strong moral compass.
She does. She has a very strong moral compass, and like, she's not willing to break her, she's just not willing to lie. She has a strong sense of who she is, and she's not going to stray from that, which is very admirable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So unfortunately, she doesn't get the job, which sucks. And of course, her nemesis gets it. Then there's this sort of montage. They're building the machine at Cape Canaveral. And then they have this really interesting. So like David Drumlin meets with Ellie, and they have this really interesting conversation where he says, "Oh yeah, I thought that the committee was unfair. I wish we lived in a world where fair was the bottom line." And then she says, "I think the world is what we make of it." I thought that was really interesting, which is like kind of a way of kind of calling out his. It's like, well, the world is the way it is because people like you are freaking snakes, and you play politics instead of like standing up for the right thing. And if everyone stood for the right thing would win.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that would, this is sort of this idealism versus pragmatism.
Yeah, for sure.
Thing. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice if the world was more idealistic on some things.
No, it would be nice, but
it's not, right?
No. Unfortunately, human beings have a really good way of not being that type of person.
Yeah.
But that's because of our life experiences and what we're shaped by, and idealism can work for one person, but the other person who's had a pretty shitty life and has tried to be idealistic and it doesn't work for them, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah. That one really struck me as like, this is like another part of the thematic piece of this film is like, she's this super idealistic person, and does that actually work? Does a person like that actually get to do what they want? Do they succeed? is it gonna happen for her? Yeah, and at this point in the story, it's like no, but I don't know. I guess we're just gonna have to move on.
No, because you're too good, and the world likes breaking good people.
Yes. Yeah. It's brutal. So okay, so then they built the thing. They're gonna run a test, and this is basically treated like a NASA sort of launch. There's Cape Canaveral, and there's a bunch of on onlooking, which is cool. I mean, I definitely would want to be around to see this thing, right? That'd be kind of cool.
I'd want to be a little far away. I'd be a little far away.
Yeah, you'd be right. You'd be right to do that. Just imagine like if the thing blew up or something, right?
I was actually watching like the top 10 worst like spaceflight disasters or something like that, and most of them were unmanned. Number 1 was Challenger. But there was one where literally, like, I forget what happened. I think it was Russian or something like that. But there's the Russian government. It happened in like the 70s, but they covered it up until like 86. But there's like video footage literally of like the rocket vaporizing people like on the ground. Like it literally like vaporized people. Yeah. And they were like, no, that didn't happen. You just can't see them because the flames are so grainy on the camera. I was like, no, like. They were like there was one incident. I don't think it was the same one, but there was one incident where they had to do a head count because they couldn't tell who was missing because there were no bodies. Because it's so hot, it will literally vaporize you if you're standing near it.
Yeah. So there was just nothing left of the people. It was just...
No, they had to do a head count of who was left to figure out who wasn't there. Yeah. Yeah,
this sort of feels like. Right, we really romanticize the kind of space exploration stuff.
Yeah, we romanticize the ones that made it because they're like, holy crap, they freaking made it. Like when there's like instances, not even just in the US, of these things going horribly wrong, like terribly wrong. And so the ones who make it, there's a little bit of survivor's guilt associated with that. I can imagine. Like they again in First Man, they portray that beautifully, tragically. The amount of guilt Neil Armstrong carries throughout that movie is outstanding and remarkable. He didn't just go catatonic. Yeah.
Thinking of like being part of a space program where people got vaporized.
Right?
Like what?
And your government covers it up. I mean, it's Russia, so why are we freaking surprised?
Yeah, we're not
surprised. They covered a disaster up. They're still saying that the amount of people who died at Chernobyl didn't actually happen. Yeah. It's like, it was just like 5 people. It was fine.
Yeah.
No.
They grew more legs. It's fine. This is no big deal.
In Soviet Russia, you die in fire.
Yeah.
Fire eat you.
Yeah. Space launch you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know the United States has some really big fucking issues. I'm really glad I did not grow up in Soviet Russia. I'm really, really glad.
No, it was bad, and then got worse. Especially like all the cover-ups, you couldn't leave.
No, you couldn't leave.
Could not.
You couldn't leave. If you lived in the United States, you could at least get on a plane to go to Hawaii. Okay, that sounds great. You couldn't,
or go to Europe or something.
Or go to Europe. You could go anywhere. Not right now. That fucking sucks. But no, you lived in Russia. It's like no.
You're stuck.
No,
I'm stuck.
I'm great right here.
Yeah. I like having freedom.
God.
Yeah, I can't imagine being part of a program and you like people got vaporized. And then you got to keep going. You got to keep taking off in these planes. It's Wile E. Coyote. Strap a bomb to your back and hope you get into space.
Literally. It's like we had a guy orbit. It's okay. We can do it again. Oh wait.
Yeah, it is crazy. It is crazy. I really feel like we haven't totally come to terms with that era.
No,
like what.
We also just talk about the amount of animals that died in the testing of all of these things. The chimps, the dogs. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
God. I mean, human
There should
life
be a
is
statue
tragic,
for these
but
freaking dogs, right?
right? There's a statue for the freaking dog. Oh, what was it? It was not a bobsledder. I think it was. It was in
What,
Alaska.
Balto?
Yeah, there's a statue for Balto, for God's sakes. I mean, he did do it. That was pretty amazing. They needed to get that penicillin to those kids.
Balto and Togo, yeah.
Yeah. I'm totally sidetracking us. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So then Ellie sees, this dude, Jake Busey. I looked up, so the character name was Joseph. Anyway, he's a radical right-wing Christian dude. And she's like, oh shit, dude, that guy, you gotta stop him. He's not supposed to be there.
Oh, that scene is so tense.
Yeah. And then they go after him, and he's like got something in his hand, and so was he wearing like a vest?
I think he was wearing like a bomb vest or something like that. But what I think what made that scene so much more tense was that you get most of it from them just watching it on the video feed. Yeah. I think there's a couple of other shots where they actually cut to inside the thing, the structure. But for the most part, it's just really from Ellie and everyone else's point of view, watching it go down. And it's horrible. It's so awful.
Yeah, you're just watching them struggle with this guy, and like he's doing whatever. I think he dropped the thing, and then he picks it back up, and then you just see them. He hits the button, and all the cameras go dark, and then you see the explosion, and just the stuff goes flying, and like you were saying, those onlookers, like there's a piece of metal goes flying at them.
Yeah, it's really awful because it's not just the people who are inside the structure. It was everyone who was watching it, the people down on the ground, it's because this thing is not like it's just launching into space or anything like that. It's just going to be woo, woo, woo. And this was just a test. They weren't even sending anyone. This was just a test. And yeah, it's so awful.
So this Christian radical dude, and then he leaves. They show this video of him. He's got like a kind of like the kind of stuff that the school shooter people do.
Yeah, or like
videotape,
or like cults and stuff like that. They sometimes leave a message. Sometimes, very cultish behavior.
Yeah, and so we're like, dude, this is it. It's over. They blew it up because like that cost like
a third of $1 trillion.
Yeah, it costs like a a large percentage of the world GDP to build this thing, and it got blown up by one nutty Christian dude. So yeah, we're at a bad point. And then she goes into her hotel room, and there's there's a massive TV and a laptop and a satellite, and she presses a button, and then it's like the Mir space station, bunch of Russians. And so yeah, this was an interesting thing. So like the Mir space station was like the Russian version of what I guess now is the ISS, and it deorbited in 2001. So yeah, at this time it still was up in orbit. Yeah, and so what's his name is there? This billionaire dude, SR Haddon, and he's basically he says, yeah, I'm up here because the zero G keeps the cancer from killing me. Oh yeah, by the way, the Japanese built a second machine.
This is why they were involved.
Yeah. I love, like, this is actually really cool. Like, when they're like, oh, by the way, and like the way he says it, like, there's this, like, why, like the first rule of government finance, why build something for one thing for half the price when you can do two at twice the price? It's like, yeah, to spend more money.
Why not? Just spend more money.
Yeah,
I love it.
And they want an American pilot. Are you in?
You want to go for a ride? I love that.
Yeah. It's like, hell yeah, I'm in. Like, I really like this part of the movie because you're like, that's kind of one thing you don't see coming, that they built a second thing that's completed in secret. And, it makes sense that they would do it in secret. They were like, hey, look, there's some people who aren't going to like this.
I mean, if it was me, I'd build too. I mean, it makes sense. What if the test goes wrong? What if it hadn't been someone who just blew it up? What if something had just gone wrong? Makes sense to build too.
Absolutely. And so they built it on this island, and they select her to be the pilot. So
Yay, Jodie.
she's gonna do it, yeah. And then we get the stuff. So this was actually very controversial, apparently. So they give her, they show the NASA people giving her a cyanide pill. So NASA didn't like that because because they say that they don't do that. What do you think that's true?
Oh,
or
fuck
not?
yeah, they do. Are you kidding me? I bet they do. If not a cyanide pill, something similar.
Yeah, I think I would probably want one if I ever did. I would not want to be, because like, okay, let's just think about this, right? So when they went to the moon, there was a non-zero chance that they would have been stuck there.
Yeah.
I don't want to just, and they were saying, oh yeah, no, we don't do that because then people can just pull their oxygen. Fuck that. I don't want to like suffocate in a freaking spacesuit.
You either suffocate or you freeze to death. How about I just go to sleep?
Yeah, how about I just bite down on the pill and look at the planet Earth as I die? I'd prefer that.
Exactly. I just yeah, no shit they didn't like it. They're probably like, oh fuck. Our secret's out.
Yeah, the pearl clutching. Oh my god, people are gonna think that astronauts could die. Like, yeah, they can die.
Wow, they're not superheroes who just drive Corvettes all the time. They're infallible. And they make mistakes. Oh wow, let me do all of this calculus and long division in my head while I'm monitoring shit, while I'm making sure I'm still breathing and not shitting my pants.
Yes. It's like, remember that scene in First Man where like they're on the rover or whatever, and like they're going over a crater, and they don't know if they have enough.
Buzz Aldrin didn't pee his pants a little bit.
He's about to bite down on the cyanide pill.
It's like, yeah, no, like yeah, he's literally doing long division and whatever other math that he has to do while keeping an eye on Neil, while talking to Collins and the thing. It's just, there's too much. Like, I'm sorry, somebody pooped in that in the rover. Somebody definitely pooped their pants. They're still heroes. They're still amazing.
I would poop my pants if I was like seeing that crater and it's black. It is black, and you are this close to falling into it, and that's it. That's it.
That rover would be filled with vomit. Okay, like, we don't want to think of them that way. That's fine. Or maybe they kept their heads completely like cool and totally under pressure. But at some point, you're gonna be reminded that you're in space over a crater and you're running out of fuel.
Yeah.
Like, that's why they do it, and I'm down here. That's
exactly.
why. That's why.
Exactly. So NASA didn't like that. So then later we get the scene where Palmer comes to see her, and then he admits that he torpedoed her thing for the first one because he didn't want to lose her.
Because it was true love.
Yeah, because I love you. So
I love you. So I completely ruined your chances of going and living out your dream.
Yeah. How would you have felt if, someone told you that you liked ostensibly?
I'd be pretty pissed.
Yeah.
I've had moments in my life where someone told me that they sabotaged something that I wanted to do because they were just like, oh no, I just didn't think you would be right for it. And I was just like, what? Or when I won something and people told me that I didn't deserve it. Like, I don't know which one is worse. Being told that you were sabotaged or knowing people don't think you deserve it. They both feel pretty similar. And it wasn't even anything like major. There's nothing that was going to change my life in any way. But no, it's a pretty crummy feeling on any level. But if like, I don't know if I was going to, because where I work now, there's an opportunity to work overseas for literally anyone. If someone told me that they sabotaged my opportunity to go work overseas, I'd be pretty upset.
Yeah,
that's the closest thing I can think of that I could relate to it. I think I'd be pretty annoyed, but he did it for love. So
they kind of gloss over that too. She kind of forgives him. I mean, maybe in the end, they don't really talk about this in the film, but you could kind of make a faith argument because if she did, she would have gotten blown up, right?
that's true, because I think they gloss over it because technically he saved her life.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why they gloss over it, because she's like, oh, well, could have been blown up. So
Yeah, it could have been blown up. and then like the worst thing is like, of course, then her nemesis would have been on the second one. So then it would have
exactly. And who knows what the hell Drum would have seen.
He would have seen himself. I think he would have seen himself. He's that kind of a guy.
Oh, yeah.
So then we get these. So this is really cool. They put her in a spacesuit, right? She's wearing this cool ass spacesuit, and she's escorted by these two Japanese guys into the pod. And it's just super cool. Like, she looks down and she can see all the way to the ground, and there's just like water under the rings that are spinning.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was so cool. Like when she's about to enter the pod, and then she gets into this pod, right? And so apparently the aliens told us to build it with this material. So like when it closes, it totally becomes I'm not sure what the word for it is, but it's like where the little divots were, where the door was, go away. So it's seamless. So there's no like door. There's like no exit, basically.
Hope you pooped before you left, Jodie.
Yeah. So, and the other thing too, so like as the rings start going faster and faster, and like the energy picks up, the material starts to become translucent, and whenever she looks at it, she can see through it. And then they give her a bunch of recording equipment. They give her like a camera basically, and some other stuff.
Yeah, kind of like a headset camera, and she's got a microphone.
She's got a mic, yeah. And then as the things pick up, hey, guess what? It stops working.
Big surprise,
yeah. The aliens are smart. They know they can trick the silly humans to prevent them from recording what's going to happen. You don't get to see what's about to happen next. You just have to believe that it happened. So then, basically there's sort of this tension about, are they going to cancel the thing or not? What's his name from the beginning? The blind guy says, no, she's good. Let it go. Let's do it. And so then they go through with this thing. And so they pick up speed, and then it sort of reaches a crescendo, and she's dropped down through a wormhole.
It's really like when you go on a water slide and you go through like the tunnel first, and then it opens up, and you're like, ah!
Yeah, it's really cool. And so this, it's really interesting comparing this to Interstellar, right? Because it's basically the same concept. You go through a wormhole, and then the wormhole takes you somewhere. Very different the way that this is depicted. As opposed, again, a lot of this has to do with technology of the time. So when she's going through, basically it's like this blue tube, and she can kind of see, where she's going, pretty much. It's not just like seeing the universe folded through a cylinder. It's sort of like almost like you're on a road, and she sees that she's going to, I think it was Nova, right? Oh, Vega.
Yeah.
Vega. Mm-hmm. This star, Vega. And so then she's going. So basically, they created a wormhole superhighway. Is what these things created. And so she's going on her first stop to Vega.
It's a hell of a ride.
Yeah. So, and again, this is so interesting because like there's a whole bunch of stuff that they try to imply. So I guess they did. They probably don't have the budget to really go there, but they kind of imply the bigger thing, the bigger scope of what's behind all this stuff. She goes to Vega, right? And it's this big blue star, and it's really cool. And she looks up for a second, right? And she sees some kind of superstructure, some kind of array or something that was built there. Mm-hmm. That's obviously built by a super advanced civilization. And then she's immediately sucked back
And
into.
then it's your
Yeah.
exit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, now we're gonna send you to. So basically, that's like our. I get like, how would I put it? It's like when you go, like when you're going to like a major road or something. It's like if you're going to New York, right? And then there's the George Washington Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So you go through the George Washington Bridge, and then if you're gonna go, I don't know, whatever, to Manhattan, then there's another bridge or whatever. So like this is her passing the George Washington Bridge to get to the next phase of wormholes to where these aliens who she's going to meet are. So then she goes through, and then she stops at this other system. This is really cool too. It has it's a 4-star. There's 4 stars that this planet that she's near are, I guess, in going around or whatever. I forget what you call it. And and again, very brief, but for a second, we see that this planet, there's a civilization there. There's like, it's nighttime and there's a whole bunch of like stuff that's lit up. So like that's basically them pretty much from what we can understand. This planet with 4 stars, which is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. I love that it's kind of similar to Interstellar, where it only gives you like a little bit, and then it takes it away, and they send her somewhere else, and then you see a little bit more, and you're just like, oh, I want to stay. I want to know about that, and then they're like, nope.
Yeah. We're left to imagine, right?
Exactly. It leaves a lot to your imagination. And there's just so much happening too. Not to mention what's going on inside the pod, and she's just like trying to explain as she's seeing everything, and it's a lot for a human being to handle. A lot, I'm sure.
Yeah. These are all the first human to ever do X, go through a wormhole, see a star that close, see some superstructure, And so then, they send her off again to some other place. And there's this interesting moment. So like for a brief second, they transpose her younger self onto her older self. Yeah, it's really interesting. And, this was, I guess we were talking about earlier with that shot with the mirror. Like, I feel like that's kind of where this is circling back. It's like all of this time relativity. It's like her younger self is experiencing this at the same time as she is now. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really
no,
cool.
that shot is really good. It still looks good. I feel like that was like the money shot. That was like, we have to make this appear seamless and fluid and natural, and it has to look, I want all of the money in this.
Yeah.
Like, this has to be perfect looking. And it did. I thought it looked really, really good. I think it could stand that shot of her face morphing and changing really seamlessly, could stand up to a movie made this year or last year.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
It looked really, really good.
And they blend the voices too. And she's like seeing the celestial event.
Should have sent a poet.
Yeah, she just said a poet. Yeah,
no, really, and that's what I love about it. She doesn't have like this big grand speech, which I'm sure she probably practiced in her head at some point, was like, oh, this is what I'm going to say, and this is what I'm going to transmit back to, home base or whatever, headquarters. And she has no words. Should have sent a poet. It's like, she's in awe of what she's seeing because nobody else has ever seen it before. No human, anyway.
Absolutely. So yeah, what do you think of, like, I guess your thoughts in general about this whole sequence?
It was good. I like that she got out and like walked around. I think it's very normal. She's not, that's the thing, she's not an explorer. You know what I mean? She's a scientist. And she even said earlier in the movie, like, what she would ask these beings if she met them. And she doesn't even ask her a question. She's too overwhelmed. She has too many questions. She thought she would be really calm, cool, and collected, but she has no words. And I like that. It felt very natural that she would just like be oohing and awing at everything, because why wouldn't you?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's overwhelming for sure.
Oh yeah.
I
Like
can't
I don't know
imagine.
what I'd ask an all I have to assume all knowing alien entity. Like we don't even know what they actually look like.
We don't.
Are they just light? Or what are they? You know? Like are they bipedal? Like do they have two arms and two legs? Do they have a head? Or is it just a brain? Is it just a floating brain in space like in Futurama? You know, like
Yeah. Hmm. We have
I would
no
not
idea.
know what to ask. I'd just be like, "Hi."
Yeah. So yeah. So then in the next scene, she like sort of finds herself on this beach. Or you know, it all looks like a you know, like a hologram, basically.
Yeah, she can like touch the sky and the sand's really weird. Everything's a little too clean and crisp looking.
Yeah. And so this is sort of supposed to be like Pensacola, Florida, like this sort of imagining of that place from her childhood. And then there's this really like the shot is like quite the tease. Like when you see a mirage of this thing and you're just like, okay, am I gonna see an alien? You know,
What's gonna happen?
yeah, you're like, oh my god, what is it? Oh, it's her dad.
It's just her dad.
Yeah.
But that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, but it's
She
not
needs
actually
closure.
her dad.
Yeah.
And they have this, they have closure, and then she's like, "You're not my dad."
You tried to pull a fast one, eh?
Yeah, it's like, oh, see, that's the scientist. And then the alien projection or whatever this thing is sort of explains, and she's like, "Oh, you must have downloaded my thoughts and figured out this is what would be the best thing for me to see." It's like, yeah, blah blah blah. And so basically, the alien explains to her like, "This is the first step. This is how we basically greet people into our intergalactic civilization. You have a couple steps you have to pass before we're gonna let you in." Another interesting thing is like the alien says like the wormhole superhighway was not built by them.
Yeah, so it's
Built
even
by
older. Like they don't even know who built it. Yeah, we just kind of found it and started using it. We don't know who made it.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me. That whole concept of like finding intergalactic, I guess, infrastructure, if you will, but like the people who built it are gone and they've never come back in like millions of years. That's really interesting concept, actually.
Yep. It's like, was it made with the Big Bang? If the Big Bang is, like what started the superhighway, like, was it the first beings that had consciousness? What was it? Who were they?
Yeah. Many many questions with not a lot of answers. And so then, like basically that's what she gets to tell the humans when she gets back. And then we see her come out of the thing and then it drops into the water and her little pod, and that was it. And so then basically people are like, from our perspective, nothing happened.
You didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, you just went, doo. And she shows the video and it's just like very
Anticlimactic.
yeah, it's just like this little thing falling. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Like,
her video feed is all like just fuzz, you know?
It's just static. Could you could you imagine like how pissed off people would be if like they spent tons of money to build this machine and it looks like we just got trolled.
Yep. Well,
Like,
that's exactly what they're implying later at the inquiry. They're just like,
Mhm.
it was all just a prank. It's all just a practical joke by this dying old guy, this dying rich old guy.
Yeah.
And he was just like trying to fuck with everybody.
So there's this inquiry, and there's Kits is there, which is the James Wood character, another antagonist basically for her. He just grills her just like big time. And he like, before they bring up Occam's razor, And he's like, well, Occam's razor would be that you're crazy, basically.
And she's like, no, I just know it happened and I have zero proof. And that's the moment where she has to go on faith, that she has to hope people just believe her, basically.
Yeah, and so she basically says, yeah, I saw the alien, which was like my dad. We were at the beach, and it was like about 18 hours was what I experienced. He's like, oh, but there's no proof, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, all she's left with is like, I know what happened. I know that was my experience. I can't explain it. There isn't any proof, but it happened.
And I love that she has no doubt. Like, they're trying to sow the seeds of doubt in her, and she's just like, no, that's not what happened at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's sort of the end of it. And then we get this scene where her and Matthew McConaughey, they leave the inquiry and they ask him, like, do you believe her? It's like, well, we don't agree, but I do believe her.
Because I love her.
Yeah.
Because now they have something in common for the first time in the whole movie.
They both have faith. Yeah. Yeah. Now, this is sort of, and then at the end we get this sort of dramatic thing where, like we were talking about before, her, James Woods and Angela Bassett are on the best FaceTime call in the history of the 90s, where what they say is nothing was recorded. It was all static, but it was 18 hours of static.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
I love his reaction that he's like, continue. And she keeps going. He's just like, continue. Like, what are you trying to say, Angela? And she's like, I think you're lying. It's like, shit, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think she was right. It's basically, yeah. So what's interesting about this, so basically what happens is, and so this is actually another thing that's not really talked about, I guess, in the same way, is this is an inverse, well, I wouldn't say it's all relativity, but it's relativity where she comes back older. She's 18 years older than the people, 18 hours older than the people of her time. That's never, that's kind of, and so it's the opposite of like what happens in like the Interstellar kind of stuff, where the main character experiences basically time travels because of relativity. That's also not talked about as much, I feel like, because she could have come back and been 100 years old, but for them it was a second, right? True.
Is there really any way to tell that she's 18 hours older, though?
Yeah, probably not.
Maybe that's why they were just like, maybe if it had been a year that she was gone, there would have been like some, I don't know, some way to tell, even like a visual cue or something like that. Because if she was gone for 40 years and she came back 40 years older, it would be like more obvious because she is the physical proof. But I can't really think of any way to tell if she's 18 hours older. But I didn't even think of that. That's a really good point, though.
I think the only way would have been if she had a watch. Right? If she had a watch and it, that would have told them, because it would have.
Which I'm kind of surprised she didn't have any kind of watch with her. Just even if it's just like a costume choice piece or anything like that. But that kind of it would make sense that maybe she would want to watch. It would make sense for the character to have one.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, a lot of this has to do with giving us a dramatic story element.
Very true.
Yeah. So, that's basically the plot of the film. So like, how did watching this film now, how did it come off to you? How did it, reviewing it, once again, like, did anything change from when you saw it the first time?
I just have a different perspective because now I'm an adult and I understand the themes just a little bit more than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, it just scared me because of the religious element of it. But now it excites me because I like science and stuff like that. Even though sometimes it goes over my head, like I really like theoretical science too, because it's just there's so many crazy like theories out there. But no, I really liked it. I think it was not I don't think any time was wasted. I think they covered a lot of important elements that sometimes I feel like films like this are getting better at, which is like the overall impact on everyone kind of a thing, like the whole of humanity. But no, it was good. I really liked it. It's one of my favorite movies now, especially about like, like going through a wormhole and shit like that. Like that's fun. Like it's just, even if like there's no way we're ever gonna do it in our lifetime, but it's fun to think about.
Yeah, definitely. I like this film probably more than I did when I watched it, when I was younger. It definitely helps a lot. Like there's a lot of stuff that, rings a lot stronger for me. The science versus religion elements, just like really understanding what the character went through, like the fact that she's like a woman in a man's world basically, and like having to deal with, like you said, all the mansplaining and all the just I don't know, just getting cut off and stuff, and just getting it's just like
not being listened to, and it doesn't even really, and even without like her like being a woman, like it's just insulting, like she's the one who discovered it, she should get credit for it, and everyone's just trying to say that they own it. It's not something that you can own. First contact is not something you can take credit for, but you can't own it. It's like, I love that. Again, I just love when she's like, why would it just be for Americans? Like I love
so
her
arrogant.
Exactly. I just love that reaction to it. And that she's like, this isn't just for the West. This isn't just for the Western world. It impacts everyone actually. And I like that I like that somebody said that.
Totally. Yeah. It's a human thing. It's for human beings.
Yeah. For humanity to share in.
Because that's, and again, from her perspective, she's a scientist. She believes in science. That's the thing that she cares about. She doesn't believe in some other crap or about, nationalism or whatever. It's like, I'm doing this because I want to break boundaries that matter for human beings, not like some...
Exactly. And not for some political agenda or for, military weaponization or whatever. That's just because we all deserve it. We all deserve to share in it. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, totally. I definitely appreciated that stuff more, especially like the science stuff, and like I really like that scene too, where she's talking with, the guy who's always undercutting her. And yeah, she really is the type of character where she wants to like do the good in the world, and like make the difference and make the change. Like that for her, like that's how you make the world the way you want it to be, is you act that way. You don't just wish it, you do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was definitely something I appreciated. So any last thoughts? Any parting feelings?
It's nice to see a character like Ellie who's like just inherently good, and she's so passionate about fairness in a scenario where fairness is just completely like, nobody gives a shit about that. And who stays true to herself while also learning that, sometimes you have to take some things on faith. She doesn't not learn any lessons. But she remains very true to herself, and I like that about her. I'm glad she didn't actually meet God.
Yeah.
Because no.
Yeah.
Or maybe she did. We really don't know.
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey would have seen Jesus. I also appreciate, again, this is another where like the scientists are like depicted in a way that's pretty cool. Yeah. I feel like, there's not a lot where it's like scientist type people are depicted as being, the
arrogant or mad scientist type of thing.
Yeah, or even just like nerdy and kind of, weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're either a nerd or you're freaking, Frankenstein or something.
Exactly. The action hero who has no scientific background whatsoever has to solve this problem.
Yeah, not the people who live their lives dedicated to science.
Exactly. Yeah, like in Armageddon, why didn't they send scientists?
I mean, in real life,
it's going to take longer to train them. I think that's why.
In real life, they would have just trained they would have brought in the oil people to train them to drill. And they would have gotten it very quickly. Like it's drilling a freaking hole.
But no, we need Bruce Willis to blow up that asteroid. He needs to punch that asteroid in the face because he's Bruce freaking Willis, damn it.
I feel like Deep Impact kind of handled the science of that stuff a lot better.
That's one that's on my list to watch.
Mm-hmm. Elijah Wood's in it too.
I heard it's very similar to Armageddon, but I don't know if I've ever seen it. My dad did like disaster movies, so he might have rented it from the VHS store that was down the street. But
yeah, what's cool is like they're very different movies for sure. That's what's nice about it. But yeah, I feel like Deep Impact is like the Contact of that type of movie. Basically, yeah, it tries to take, but it's another 90s artifact for sure.
I'll probably end up. I definitely plan on watching it. Like I said, it's on my list of those 90s movies to watch.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that covers everything we're going to talk about. It's been fun. This is definitely a good sort of series of films. They've all sort of covered similar topics, and it's been fun talking about them and kind of going back on them, and also sort of seeing how film has approached these similar things over time and how different they are.
Yeah, exactly. Different interpretations too, for sure, which is always nice to have like a different perspective on how people imagine, what a wormhole might be like to travel through on a super alien highway.
Yeah, I guess one last thing I wanted to talk about was like, I saw this thing, and so basically the movie Doctor Strange references this movie in a really interesting way.
Really?
So like, yes. Yeah. I don't know have you seen that movie, Doctor Strange?
Oh yeah, I was so psyched to see that movie.
So when Doctor Strange, at some point he like, I think he meets Dormammu or something like that, but like he's sucked into some kind of weird place. The way that they play it out is exactly like Contact.
I need to rewatch Doctor Strange then, because like if I probably wouldn't have made that connection because I haven't seen Contact in years. Maybe rewatching Doctor Strange will. Oh, maybe when he's like floating through the multiverse or something like that.
There's something like that. It is exactly the same. Like he gets, like the way she gets sucked through the wormhole. He gets sucked through the wormhole the same way.
Oh, yeah.
Like you see like him, like he's there, and then like he's like, and then you see him like, it's exactly the same as Contact.
Huh. Well, that makes sense. That's pretty cool.
And it's because the same team worked on both films, the special effects people. So
nice. I like that. I like that little connection.
It's interesting too, because when you see it like they're, it just shows you like what happens with time with these effects. They're so different over time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially when the technology evolves to do more.
Yeah.
That maybe you wanted to do then, but you couldn't because you were limited.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, it's implied that Doctor Strange goes through the same ancient wormhole highway,
cosmic highway.
Yeah.
Hey, that'd be pretty cool.
That would be cool. Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
So any stuff you want to plug or anything, any project you got coming up online?
No, I was actually thinking before I started doing this, and like, cause I have my Septemberfest thing that I do. I was thinking about doing something similar around holiday movies.
Yeah.
I saw a trailer for, I think Mel Gibson's supposed to be playing Santa. And like an action Santa movie, I feel like Mel Gibson's needs to pay his dues back. Like he made a good World War II, World War I, or World War II movie, with the kid who played Spider-Man. What's his name? Garfield, Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, that's right.
Which was supposed to be a really fantastic movie, but I don't know. I feel like Hollywood's forcing Mel Gibson to like atone in a lot of ways before he can be welcomed back 100% again.
He definitely like that. Like, man, he went to a dark place.
Yeah, he went there. He went there all right.
He's got some demons.
Yeah, he's got some real demons. It kind of makes me want to watch Passion of the Christ, but I don't know if I don't know if I'll ever actually watch that movie. Because it's not for me. You know what I mean? How some movies are made specifically for certain people.
Yeah.
It's not for me, so I kind of feel like it'd be a waste of time. But at the other hand, I'm just like, it started a train wreck. It started a train wreck. So Mel Gibson's always been a very interesting person to me. Pluses and negatives. I like a lot of his movies. It's kind of how I feel about Tom Cruise. You know,
Yes.
I mean, like we've talked about the Scientology thing before, where like they're fantastic, they're really good actor, they're very good. Even Mel Gibson's a pretty good director. But there's just something that, you know, like you wouldn't want to meet them.
I feel like with Mel, when he gets drunk, I think that's when you get the craziness comes out.
Yeah, because I never really associated Mel Gibson with sleaziness before all of that went down, and then it was just like it was just sleazy. You know what I mean? You always kind of hoped he wasn't like that true Hollywood type or whatever, but you know, we don't know these people, so all we can do is again speculate. But it's definitely disappointing when they're a filmmaker or an actor that you like.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he has a very like acute level of like depicting violence for sure in the films he directs.
Yeah,
very good at it in a way that feels real, but it's also very brutal. But yeah, I've heard some interesting things too about the Santa movie. It's definitely a curiosity.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like, again, one of those actors who had a hard time transitioning around like the late 2000s going into like the 20 teens or whatever.
Yeah, I read this thing where they wanted him to be a gladiator.
Really?
Yeah, but he turned it down.
I could picture that. I'm really glad
totally.
It wasn't him. I can picture it, but I'm really glad it was Russell Crowe because I love Gladiator. I love that movie so much.
I've been watching it again recently. Yeah, I love Oliver Reed's a very interesting. I recently watched some other stuff that he did, and he's a very interesting actor, like very interesting. And unfortunately, he died before he was because like the way that movie was supposed to end was whatever the new emperor was going to make him fight Oliver Reed. Yeah, that was supposed to be the ending. That was
his mentor, right? Oliver Reed was his mentor. Yeah, didn't he had a heart attack in a bar fight?
I don't know how he died.
It was something like that. Like it was something where he either was in a arm wrestling match and had a heart attack, or he got drunk and got into a bar fight and had a heart attack. But it was because they had to film him from behind. They had to stand in for those last scenes from behind.
They also did some CGI. That was the first dead guy CGI in history, basically.
Yeah.
And they had to rewrite the script. They had to rewrite because he was supposed to fight him in the end.
Oh, that ending would have been crazy. That actually, like, that's a pretty compelling ending because you know how there's always that theme of like the student needs to surpass the master kind of a thing. You know, like especially like Star Wars is huge on that whole hero's journey aspect. Yeah, that would have been really sad. That would have changed the ending in a lot of ways because it kind of goes to hell a little bit with all like the slaves break out and all that other stuff and whoa.
Yeah. So I don't, maybe it's better off the way it is now. I don't know.
It's still a great movie.
Great movie, yeah, for sure. Okay, yeah, I think that covers everything for this episode. We'll see, if there'll be one next week or not, or what we're gonna cover. But yeah, this has been a fun trip of watching these, basically astronaut movies.
Yeah. That's been good.
Cool. All right, everybody. So take care, and may the force be with you.